Good morning, dear students. Let's start here the revision of chapter 11 and 12, that is composition and structure of the atmosphere and insolation. So in this video, I will give you the revision of both the chapters. So first of all, this composition and structure of the atmosphere, and second, this is the 12th chapter, insolation. So already the video I have uploaded, that is about the detailed explanation, and in the NLP you can go through it again. So this is just a revision. So let's see here the first of all about the composition and structure of the atmosphere. We are going to revise this chapter in these three following topics. First of all, we are going to see about the composition of atmosphere, and next is the structure of the atmosphere, and then the global warming and its consequences. So let's see here first of all the composition of atmosphere. So already I have explained you that the atmosphere is composed of many gases, but the most major gases are nitrogen, that forms about 78%, and oxygen in approx it forms 21%. Then after that, the 1% actually that covers all the gases, in which carbon dioxide, it constitutes 0.033%, and argon, it constitutes about only 0.93%. So these are some major gases, and as all of you know, nitrogen, oxygen and carbon dioxide, they are known as the life supporting gas, and already I have discussed about this, explained it, and how they are the life supporting gas. Well, now let's quickly move to the structure of the atmosphere. Now the atmosphere, it has been classified on the two bases. First is on the basis of composition. Atmosphere can be classified into two layers, and that is the first, the lower layer is homosphere, and the second is the heterosphere. Homosphere means the layer which supports the life, that is only up to stratosphere, means troposphere and stratosphere, it consists in the homosphere, and after that thermosphere and ionosphere, and above that exosphere, that is in the heterosphere. Well, now on the basis of the structure, the atmosphere can be classified into four major layers, that is according to your book, but in the higher classes we will come to know that further classifications. So let's see here, the first one is the troposphere, the first layer, that extends up to 18 km on the equator and 8 km on the poles. So here this altitude of this layer is not same from the equator to pole, as you can see. So on equator it is much higher altitude, that is up to 16 to 18, and on poles it's only 8 to 10. Well, now this troposphere, this is derived from, literally it is derived from the word, from the Greek word known as tropos, that means mixing, because you can find all types of mixing here. You will find first of all the pollution, it is released in this layer. This layer, all the weather phenomena takes place in the troposphere. The whole birds fly are found in this layer. So usually the troposphere, you can find mostly every activity is taking place. Then the second layer is the stratosphere, but between the stratosphere and troposphere there is one very thin layer that separates these two layers, that is known as tropopause, very thin layer. And above this tropopause there lies stratosphere. So starting from 18 km and it extends up to 80 km. But further, this stratosphere, it can be classified into stratosphere and mesosphere. And even within the stratosphere, there lies one more layer, that is ozonosphere. So let's see here. First of all, this stratosphere, in this layer, no visible weather phenomena takes place. No birds fly here. Well, some very thin clouds, they are found, usually known as cirrus clouds. Usually we call them, it is also called the mother of the pearl clouds, but it doesn't rain. Means they don't cause any type of precipitation. So this is, in this layer, all the aeroplane, jet aircrafts, they fly in the second layer, stratosphere. Now up from the height of 20 to 30 kilometer, and within the stratosphere lies there ozonosphere. Now this layer is made up of 3 atoms of oxygen, that is O3. Ozone is known as O3. 3 atoms of oxygen, when they forms and they makes this ozone gas. So this layer usually it contains this gas. Now this ozone layer, it acts as a filter, especially for the ultraviolet rays. And usually what happens, it absorbs all the ultraviolet rays. But one thing, this ozone layer, it can be depleted. Now there are so many harmful chemicals are found, which has been released through the pollution in the air. So these harmful chemicals, especially, usually we call them fluorocarbon, means all the compound gases which may either contain chlorine or fluorine or carbon. So these gases somehow, whether usually these gases are heavy, but if these gases can reach to the height of ozonosphere, so what happens? These gases, they react with ozone and it breaks its composition, and this is how a depletion is caused, and this depletion caused in this ozone layer is known as ozone hole. Now through this ozone hole, what happens? The ultraviolet rays can reach to the earth's surface, and these ultraviolet rays are very intense rays, and they can further cause so many harm. Now it can harm the human life, it can harm the both fauna and flora and fauna on the earth, and even it can harm the aquatic life, and different types of consequences can be seen. So this is the importance and the depletion of ozone layer, and this is why many countries together in 1990 they sat and they have signed one treaty, according to which now they have taken some steps to control these gases. Means which gases? CFC gases, because these are the most important enemy for the ozone layer, so that the depletion of ozone layer can be controlled. Okay, so this is about the ozone which is found within the stratosphere. Now after stratosphere, that is up to the height of 80 kilometer, but one more thing I told you, from the height of 50 to 80 within the stratosphere there lies one more layer known as mesosphere. Now this mesosphere, usually why it is so important, because what happened when the meteorites, there are so many free radicals, free big rocks and small particles, when they enters in the atmosphere of the earth, as sometimes they have been pulled by the gravitational force of the earth, and when they enters in mesosphere, now mesosphere contains slight amount of oxygen. So what happens when these meteorites, they enters in this layer, they catches fire, and this is how sometimes you can see the shooting stars. The shooting stars are nothing but they are the meteorites. When they enters in this mesosphere, they catch fire. And what happened till they reach to the earth's surface, large number of these meteorites, they disappear, means vanish in the way. Well, now next is just above the stratosphere, means above mesosphere, 80 kilometer. So from 80 to 480 there lies another layer known as thermosphere. Now in the book you will find there is written ionosphere or thermosphere. So mainly actually it is a thermosphere, And in thermosphere, there lies one more layer within the thermosphere known as ionosphere. So this ionosphere is a layer formed by the ions. What are the ions? Negatively charged particles. Now, how they get this negatively charged? Actually, what happens? There are so many radiation enters in the atmosphere of the earth. So these gases actually, which is found in the ionosphere, they absorb this radiation and they get negatively charged, right? So they forms the ion. They turn into ions, and these ions, this ionosphere is very very important, especially for the radio frequencies, all the radio waves which is being sent from the different radio station. What happened? They can't escape the atmosphere of the earth. Why? Because this ionosphere, it just forms one reflector around the earth. Again and again they just reflect these radio waves back in the earth's surface. So these radio waves, they just travel within the atmosphere of the earth and they just travel in all the parts of the earth. That is why from BBC the radio signals can be catch in New Zealand or in India. Next is above 480 km, there lies the large layer, thickest layer known as the outermost layer of the atmosphere known as exosphere. So from 480 to 9600, in the round figure books, in the books it is written 10,000, and some books you will find even up to 40,000. Well, so this is known as exosphere. This is the layer in which you can find there are so many satellites revolving around the earth. Well, so now next is the global warming and its consequences. So global warming, as all of you know, the average increase of temperature of the earth, that is the atmosphere of the earth, is called global warming. Now usually, because as all of you know, what is the most important factor behind this global warming? So there is the one factor, greenhouse effect. Now what is greenhouse effect? In greenhouse effect, usually the atmosphere of the earth, it contains carbon dioxide, water vapor, dust particles. Now these dust particles, usually we call them particulate matter, SPM, solid particulate matter. What are these solid particulate matter? These particles are so fine and so light that they become the part of the air. Now they don't settle down because they are so light in weight. So they are called SPM, solid particulate matter. Now these are the dust particles which are found in the atmosphere. So they don't settle. Well, SPM, and after that there are so many gases which contains carbon, like methane. It contains carbon. Then these gases, what happen? They absorb the heat during the day, and usually they keeps the atmosphere warm, or you can say it maintains the temperature of the atmosphere of the earth even during the night. And this is what you can find. Usually it was discovered in the greenhouses. Greenhouses are the glass houses where the vegetables and the flowers are usually grown in the cold countries. So it is built to maintain the temperature. So on this name, because the same effect can be seen in the atmosphere of the earth, so this name from that effect which has been discovered in the glass houses, this name is given to this effect, and this is why we call this effect greenhouse effect. Now usually what happens, because there is a lot of pollution is being just released in the atmosphere, which contains so many types of gases like carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and there are so many compound gases which also contain other different compounds. Now these gases, because the amount of these gases as it is increasing, so these gases now they are absorbing more heat and increasing the temperature of the atmosphere. And this is why the temperature of the atmosphere is increasing. And this is called global warming. Now these consequences of global warming can be seen in many ways. First of all, as the temperature is increasing, the ice cap on the both poles, it's melting. So the level of sea is rising. So it can be dangerous for the low places, especially there are so many islands, and if further 2-3 meters the level of the sea rises, so many islands can be submerged in the water. Many lowland areas, coastal areas, it may submerge in the water. Next is, as the global warming, this temperature is increasing, so it is also affecting the temperature of the sea. Now in the sea, there are some places where the temperature usually is neither very hot, neither it is very cold, and in that temperature, usually it is very favorable for the coral reefs, because coral reefs, they actually lives on the planktons and zooplanktons, the microbes, which I have explained you in the previous videos. So these planktons, they usually grow in certain water, means the water neither should be very hot nor it should be very cold. Now what happens as the temperature is increasing, so the places where the coral reefs are found, the temperature of those sea also is increasing, and so what happens, these sea is now being depleted by the nutrients, means the microorganisms, and this is how these coral reefs actually, they are also being affected by the global warming. Another thing can be seen in the imbalance in the climatic condition. Because of the global warming, you can find some places during the summer temperatures are very hot, very extreme. Winters are also very extreme, means very cold, and some places which were usually experiencing the drought, now they are experiencing very heavy rainfall. The areas usually which experience very good rainfall, now they are experiencing drought. So these type of climatic condition, the climatic change can be seen in the different parts of the world, and this is why, because of the global warming. So this chapter is over. Now let's start here the last chapter, the 12th chapter, that is insolation. Now insolation, all of you know. First of all, let me explain you about the insolation. The amount of heat intercepted by the Earth's surface is called insolation. So usually if you find the solar radiation, it means the light that enters in the atmosphere of the Earth. But after that, what happened? Large part of the heat is distributed. So if you find here the heating of the atmosphere, you will find here out of 100%, about 40% of the solar radiation is reflected back, either by the clouds, either by the atmosphere, or by the even ground. So 40% is reflected back. Now what happened? 15% is absorbed by the atmosphere. We have seen there are so many gases which absorbs the heat directly from the sun. And so only 45 being intercepted by the Earth's surface, and this is called insolation. Now what happens? This 45% heat which is being intercepted by the Earth's surface, so first of all the Earth surface becomes hot, and again it starts radiating the heat back in the atmosphere, and this we call terrestrial radiation. So this, by the terrestrial radiation, first of all, the Earth, this temperature heats the air close to the Earth's surface. Now here when the air becomes warm, it becomes light and rise up, and cold air comes back to take its place. Now this is what? This process is called convection. But this convection, even it heats the atmosphere only up to a certain altitude. And after that what happens? This heat is transferred to the next level, from here to the other level, and this transfer can be explained or defined as conduction process. So here if you find the heating of the atmosphere, it just contains all the three processes: radiation, convection and conduction. Now this is given in your book, and you can find it. Diagram is given there. I have explained this in the video, in the chapter, you can consult it. Now let's see about the differential heating of the land and water. Now usually you will find the land it just absorbs heat quicker than the water, and even it radiates the heat quicker than the water. So the water first of all, it get heated, means it get heated after a long time. It takes a long time to get heated, but even when it absorbs the heat, so it takes a longer time to radiate the heat. Both things. Now what is it? So in physics you may have studied, the water has 5 times more heat capacity than the land. Specific heat capacity. What is the meaning of specific heat capacity? Specific heat capacity means some matter which can contain the heat up to which time or what duration, that is called specific heat capacity. So water can contain the heat 5 times more than the land. So that is the difference, and because of this we will find what happened. The land becomes cool quicker than the water, and because of this we can find near the coastal areas, land and the sea breeze, they develops because of this specific heat capacity, differential heating of land and water. Well, and this is a major factor which affects the climate of the earth. The detailed explanation I have given in the video, you can consult it. Now let's just move to the next topic, factors affecting the distribution of temperature. And the first factor is latitude. So latitude, all of you know, equator is the lower latitude, but as you move upside, and you will find 40 degrees, 60 degrees, 70 degrees are the higher latitudes. So what happens? The lower latitudes there is more insolation, while the higher latitudes you will find temperature keeps on decreasing both sides. From the equator towards pole, temperature keeps on decreasing, and this is how you can find this is a major factor. In detail I have explained this, you can consult the video. Now altitude in the mountain areas, hilly areas, you can find they are cooler. Why? Because as we go up, the air becomes thinner and thinner. And what happens? This is why in the lower layer the temperature is more. And one more thing, the heat travels from downwards, and that's why the hilly areas they are cooler than the plains. Now next is the distance from the sea. Now usually you will find near the coastal areas, because what happened, the sea breeze influence the climate, and that's why the weather is moderate. Climatic conditions usually in the coastal areas are moderate, but as you move farther from the coastal areas, it becomes extreme. Now this is a major factor that affects the climate of the whole earth. Next is the ocean currents. Already I have explained you about the warm current and cold current. So there are the ocean currents are of two types, warm current, cold current. So when the currents are warm, so what happens? The water also becomes warm. When the currents are cold, so what happens? The water of that region, that sea, becomes also cold. And this is how they affect, first of all, the atmospheric pressure, then they affect the wind, they affect the rainfall, and they affect the coastal weather of the coastal areas. So this is how, if you will find, the ocean current also affect the climate of the earth. Next is the winds. And the winds, if you will find, usually whenever the climate gets changed, or you can say when the season changes, first of all the sign you will see the wind. The temperature of the wind gets changed. And one very common example I can give you in our place in North India. Now during the winters, as you can find here, now this is weather season is just changing from summer to winter. So this is the transition time. And one thing you will find, the wind which is blowing, it will just change into cooler and cooler from December onwards. So what happens? As the wind will become cold, you can see the temperature of the whole place will become also drops down. So these wind brings the winter. Now what happened in the summer season? From the March onwards, you can find these cold winds now starts developing, it becomes warmer, and till April and May it becomes very extreme hot, and you can find temperature becomes extremely hot. So this is how the winds are the major factor which affect the climate of the whole earth. And there are the different types of winds. There are the local winds, there are the variable winds, there are the permanent winds. Now even the cyclones are also a types of wind. We will all study in detail in the next chapter. So in the next session, means next semester. Now next is the cloud and the rainfall. So usually you can find whenever the cloud covers the sky, what happens? Temperature drops down. Whenever the rainfall occurs, what happens? Temperature drops down. Slope of the land. Now usually what happens? You can find slope of the land especially. We can take the example of Himalayas. Now Himalayas are situated on the north part of India. So the south slope is towards India, but the northern slopes is towards China. And you will find the southern slopes are warmer than the northern slopes. What is the reason? The reason is you will find the sun rays, it falls directly on the southern slopes, means the slopes towards India. And the slopes towards north, means in the China, it doesn't receive the direct sun rays. And this you can see in the differentiation in the difference in the temperature, right? Well, next is the vegetation. So whenever the vegetation, especially the forest region, if you visit there, you can see the temperature is cooler. Why? Because the forest cover, they just protect the land to get the sun rays. So that's why temperature is cooler. Nature of the soil. Last point. When the soil is dark, it can absorb more heat. But when the soil is light in color, so it will absorb less heat. So now when the soil is moist, it can absorb less heat, but when the soil is dry, it can absorb more heat. So this is how the nature of the soil is also one very important factor which affect the temperature distribution. Well, so these are the factors we have seen, and this chapter is over now, and all of you just go through the question answers, right? And because only 6 chapters are there in the session, in the whole semester, so there is nothing is reduced, right? According to the syllabus which is being given, reduced syllabus, according to that question paper is not prepared. So you have to study everything. Only one thing I told you, that in the weathering and denudation, that denudation part is removed. You don't have to study the denudation part, in which it is given about the action of the wind and action of the rivers. So that part you don't have to study, otherwise all the 6 chapter you have to study it, and the question paper is prepared from the whole part. And even my suggestion is you also just go through the action of the wind and action of the wind and rivers, running water, because I've explained this. So maybe if 1 or 2 questions if you get, so you don't have any problem, because already only a very small syllabus has been asked. So all of you just study thoroughly. So no syllabus has been reduced here, and this whatever the syllabus is reduced, that is for the board examination. So all the best for your examination.